Years have passed since the events I now recount, and only now, with those involved beyond the reach of justice, can I safely share them. The episode was one of the most unusual and unsettling of all my time with Sherlock Holmes. It was a bitter winter evening when Holmes and I returned from a walk. Upon entering our sitting room, Holmes spotted a card on the table. With a look of disgust, he read the name: Charles Augustus Milverton, Appledore Towers, Hampstead. Agent. I asked who the man was. "He's the worst man in London," Holmes declared, his voice laced with hatred. "A venomous blackmailer. I'd rather face a murderer than deal with Milverton." Holmes explained that Milverton made a fortune by acquiring scandalous letters, often through bribery or betrayal, and blackmailing individuals, particularly women of high society. His latest victim was Lady Eva Brackwell, a noblewoman engaged to the Earl of Dovercourt. Milverton had in his possession a few ill-advised letters she'd once written to a poor young man. Unless she paid him a substantial sum, he intended to send those letters to her fiancé and ruin her. Holmes had invited Milverton that evening, intending to negotiate. The man arrived, a plump figure with a polished manner and a constant, frozen smile. Holmes offered a modest sum on Lady Eva's behalf, arguing her financial limits. But Milverton remained unmoved, demanding £7,000. He even bragged about how an earlier refusal from another woman had led to her ruin. As Milverton prepared to leave, Holmes made a last plea for decency. But Milverton, smug and impenetrable, refused. He hinted at other blackmail cases awaiting a similar fate. Once the man left, Holmes sat silently for a long time. Then, without a word, he went into his room. Moments later, a rugged-looking workman with a pipe and goatee stepped into the street. I understood then, Holmes had begun his campaign. For several days, Holmes came and went, disguised as a working-class tradesman. Eventually, he returned late one stormy evening, visibly pleased. "You'll be surprised to hear I'm engaged," he said. "Engaged?" "My dear Holmes." "To Milverton's housemaid." I was speechless. "I needed access, Watson," he explained. "I've learned everything I need about the house. Tonight, I'm going in." He intended to burgle the house and recover the letters. Despite the risks, I refused to let him go alone. After some protest, Holmes agreed. We dressed as respectable theater-goers, then switched to dark clothing with black silk masks. At 11, we headed toward Appledore Towers in Hampstead. We reached the house by foot, passing through dark laurels and entering through a greenhouse. The air was thick with the scent of exotic plants. Holmes led the way with confident precision. We moved through the house in silence, passing into Milverton's study. A fire still burned, casting long shadows. Holmes examined the safe, then the doorway to the adjacent bedroom. It was all quiet. He set to work with his set of tools. I stood guard. Half an hour passed in tense silence as Holmes meticulously worked on the safe. Finally, it clicked open. But before he could examine the contents, he froze. Footsteps approached. We both slipped behind the curtains, hidden from sight. The door opened. Milverton entered, lit a cigar, and began pacing the room. Eventually, he sat in the red leather chair and began reading a document. From our hiding spot, we could see the back of his head, the cigar smoke curling upward. Then came a light knock at the door. Milverton answered it. A tall, veiled woman entered. She stood tense, her figure trembling with rage. "You're late!" Milverton snapped. The woman did not reply. Instead, she slowly raised her veil. Her face was beautiful, but hardened by suffering and fury. "It is I," she said, "the woman whose life you destroyed." Milverton paled. "You were obstinate," he muttered. "I offered fair terms. You refused. You ruined my marriage. My husband died heartbroken. You laughed at my tears." With a deadly calm, she pulled a revolver from her cloak. "You will destroy no more lives." And she fired, again and again. Milverton collapsed over the desk, then staggered and fell to the floor. One last bullet silenced him. The woman stepped forward, ground her heel into his lifeless face, and fled into the night. I was about to intervene when Holmes gripped my wrist. His silent warning was clear. This was justice, and we had our own mission to complete. Holmes immediately sprang into action. He locked the study door as voices rang out elsewhere in the house. Then, with haste but no panic, he pulled letter after letter from the open safe and threw them into the fire. Flames consumed the dark secrets Milverton had used to ruin others. We made our escape as the house roused. A servant chased us across the garden. Holmes scaled the high wall with ease, and I followed, barely escaping the grasp of a pursuing hand. We ran across the open stretch of Hampstead Heath, putting distance between us and the chaos. The next morning, we sat at breakfast when Inspector Lestrade arrived. "Mr. Holmes, might I ask if you are available to assist us with a murder case?" "A murder?" "At Appledore Towers. Milverton was shot dead last night. We suspect it was someone trying to destroy blackmail material. Nothing of value was taken, just letters, all burned." "Strange case indeed," said Holmes. "There were two intruders. One got away, but the other struggled with a gardener. A strong, middle-sized man with a mustache. Might even fit Watson here," Lestrade added with a laugh. Holmes smiled but declined to help. "There are crimes the law can't reach, and sometimes justice takes other forms." Lestrade left, puzzled. Later, while walking with Holmes, I noticed his thoughtful silence. Then, suddenly, he darted off and led me to a shop window displaying photos of notable people. He stopped in front of the portrait of a regal lady with a strong, proud face. It was her, the woman who had killed Milverton. Her identity, now known only to Holmes and me, would remain our secret. Holmes placed a finger to his lips, and we turned away.